You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
And welcome to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Richard Franzi, and this is podcast episode 1020. It's often hard to keep up with the latest business developments. This is where the Orange County Business Journal comes in. OCBJ, as we affectionately call it here, delivers the most complete package of news and information where executives, managers, and other professionals can utilize this information in their firm and in their decision-making. I've invited finance reporter for the Orange County Business Journal, Peter Brennan, to join us today to kind of discuss some of the latest trends on his beat and what he covers here in Southern California. Peter, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. Why don't you, before we get into the substance of the interview, let the audience know a little bit about you as a professional reporter. You know, what's your track record? What's your career like?
Well, let me tell you, I'm like an oxymoron. There are very few reporters in their 50s still around in the U.S. nowadays.
Why is that?
Well, most reporters, by the time they're in their 40s, are burned out, or their spouses are saying getting higher paying jobs or that sort of thing. So they become editors, or they go into public relations, or they go into government, or teaching, or those sort of fields. I've been one of those few who've been lucky to been able to survive this long.
Why is that?
Well, one, I transitioned from covering politics into business about 25 years ago. And most reporters, one of the shocking things about reporting is that they don't understand numbers very well. You know, they're always saying, oh, I'm a left-brain person or a right-brain person. I do writing. I know the verb subject, but talk about numbers. Nah. You know, I had an editor who talked about the 18-foot yacht, you know, to give you an example. And so most reporters don't do that. I understand numbers. I love numbers. I deal with them. I look at graphs. I love graphs and the like. And so I've been fortunate to do that. And when I started out my career and back in the 80s, I spent about a decade in Latin America. So I covered I was in Venezuela for a couple of years, and then in Central America. And then the terrible thing happened. Peace broke out in Central America, and all of a sudden the editors did not want freelance stories from Central America. So I had to position myself. I was going to go cover the next civil war in Peru, but actually I ran into this Costa Rican woman. I thought she's far more interesting than a civil war in Peru.
Okay.
And so I married her. And,
oh, my goodness.
Yes, and she's from Costa Rica. And so we got married, and I looked around ways to generate higher revenue, and I saw business paid a bit better, and it was normal business hours, 9 to 5, basically, as opposed to weekends and evenings with political coverage. And so I switched there, and I was I was the founding editor of what's the Costa Rican American Chamber of Commerce Business Costa Rica magazine, and I covered business for a wide variety of publications.
In Costa Rica?
In Costa Rica, and then I was on somebody's Rolodex in New York, and every time something big happened in the U.S., somebody would call me. So, you know, if you look at CNN and they have a voice on the other end of a map, that was the guy. I was that guy.
Okay.
You know, and so then the New York Times, I freelanced for them, and the Washington Post, I freelanced for them, and the BBC, the CNN, CBC, NBC, all these acronyms I did. And so, you know, little by little, I developed revenue streams all around, and I probably have, I was freelancing for about, I'd say 30 different publications at that time in Central America. And so then the Kiplinger Fellowship offered me a full year to get a master's at the Ohio State University.
There you go.
And then I did that, and my wife from Costa Rica did not like the weather in Ohio
really?
For some reason.
Yeah,
shocking.
I can't understand that.
She said, I like Southern California. Let's go to Southern California. So then
Okay.
I started at the Orange County Business Journal for 3 years. And then Bloomberg hired me, and I was covering Wall Street for 15 years. And then I left Bloomberg, and then I went to, last year I was working for PIMCO, one of the world's largest bond funds.
Sure.
And then I also worked for Herbalife last year, which had a big ongoing fight with Bill Ackman. And then
what does a financial reporter do for Herbalife?
I'll ghostwrite editorial pieces and freelance, or not freelance, but public relations articles,
okay.
And those sort of things, you know. So I was between gigs, and my buddy who was at the Orange County Business Journal was the editor there. Said, "Why don't you come work for me for 3 months?" And so I came back for 3 months, and I had so much fun. We reached an agreement where they would, you know, where I'm on right now as a financial editor.
Okay, so let's talk about the Orange County Business Journal. For those that are listening to the show either here on octalkradio.net, OC stands for Orange County, or maybe on iTunes or Stitcher in the future, who live in Southern California, you're probably familiar with the brand OCBJ. but maybe for our international audience, for the people outside of Southern California, they may not be familiar with this platform. Can you describe what Orange County Business Journal, what service does it provide here?
It covers the business in the county of Orange. Orange County is a county of 3 million people located between Los Angeles and San Diego. It has an economy the size of Greece. So you can imagine a business publication covering Greece. That's what we are, but for a county here in Orange County, for a county here in Southern California. And so we cover everything that has to do with business. Our forte is real estate and health sector and technology, and that's where we're really good at. I'm building up the financial coverage, and so there's a lot of great financial stories here. There's PIMCO, which was one of the world's largest bond funds, which is based here. There's also a person called Rob Arnott, who developed what's called Smart Beta. It's a cross between investing in a passive index and an active investment, and so he's down there in Newport Beach as well. There's another guy called John Buckingham. He developed he writes this newsletter called Al Frank Asset Management, which has been called the single best newsletter in returns in the last 35 years, and he's based down here in Aliso Viejo, and so I interviewed him. So I'm talking to a lot of different executives of banks and financial firms and the like. So that's what we do.
So you were mentioning, interesting. You were mentioning before. I didn't know that we had the economy the size of Greece. So noted. That's something I'm going to take that and put that into my pitch about Orange County.
Feel free. Can I tell you a little story?
Yeah.
When I was in Costa Rica, I went to a surf spot. I'm a surfer, and there's a place called Pavones there, and I wrote about it. It says that it has a wave so long you can take a nap on it. And every travel writer after that has stolen that line from me and used it in their books. And I say to them, they're all my buddies. You can use it as long as you buy me a beer.
There you go. All right. So Orange County, we have about 3 minutes left in this segment, but I'm wondering if you could tell us about the latest roundup you did for Orange County-based banks, maybe hit some of the highlights of what you saw.
Certainly. It's interesting. The 5 biggest banks based here in Orange County, they all reported their second quarter earnings last week. 4 of the 5 reported increasing profits. So, increasing profits is always a good sign. And in the trading session the day after they reported, 3 of the 5 banks saw their stocks go up by at least 3%. So 2 of the banks are doing very well in the past year. That's First Foundation and Pacific Premier Bank. Their stocks have gone up about 50% in the past year. Opus Bank and Bank of California, their stocks have gone down in the past year because they each they had problems that related to bad loans, basically.
Okay.
And so they're trying to work their way out of it, and they probably will, most likely, and the like. So the banks that are based here in Orange County, for the most part, the second quarter was pretty good.
Business owners and CEOs listen to this radio show, companies up to about 100 million, and I think most of them understand the importance of the relationship with their banker, and especially during challenging times, but also in good times, because that's how you fund your growth many times. But having a healthy bank as a partner is really important as well. So what have you seen relative to the overall health of the banking sector, the finance sector, since you've been covering it?
I never knew their bankers could be such intriguing characters.
Really?
Yes. The CEOs here in the banking community are quite interesting.
Can we hold on a second, Peter? We little listeners know that when they hear that sound, that means something important was just said. And if they weren't quite paying attention, go back about 30 seconds and hear what Peter Brennan said about bankers. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I had to get that in.
Oh, well, that's quite all right.
Okay.
You have a fellow named Steven Sugarman, and he's the guy who decided to invest $100 million of Bank of California's money into this new soccer stadium next to the Rose Bowl in downtown LA, and so that that stadium will be named Bank of California. And now he had some unrelated problems. Well, there were a lot of questions about that, but he had some unrelated issues, and so he was forced out of in January, and so they brought in a new CEO, and so he's putting the hammer down, and he's they got rid of half their mortgage. They got rid of half their employees because they didn't want to be in the mortgage industry anymore.
Okay, so they got out of a whole sector, and then
yes, the home mortgages,
right.
Residential mortgages.
So we were known for savings and loans. If you're old enough to remember the savings,
I am.
Okay,
yes.
okay, back in that day. But and we were sort of ground zero for subprime too.
That's right.
Okay, so it's a good bellwether then, I think, to see how the health of the financial community in Southern California, and particularly in Orange County, is. And it sounds like from what your latest roundup said, I think 4 of the 5 banks showed growth and profit,
Increasing profits, and
which is awesome.
Yes, it's great, and everybody's worried about what happened 10 years ago in the 2008 financial crisis, and
right.
I talk extensively, and there are quite a big number of big differences, and so they don't expect anything close to that happening again.
Great.
So.
Well, that's good news. The other part of this market here in Southern California, and Orange County in particular, is real estate. So we're going to take a break here. For those of you that listen to the radio show either on octalkradio.net or one of the platforms that we use, iTunes, Stitcher, you know that our commercial breaks don't last very long, so don't go far from your radio or your, I don't know, maybe your smartphone, because we're going to be right back with Peter Brennan, and we're going to talk about some real estate ideas and maybe a recent transaction as well, okay?
Sounds great.
All right, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this word from me.
If you are an Orange County business executive, this message is for you. Do you ever feel isolated with no place to turn for advice or feedback? Who holds you accountable to your commitments in your company? Where do you find the right resources to help you and your company grow? If you have these questions, then Critical Mass for Business might be the answer for you. Critical Mass for Business is committed to helping you make better decisions. These are groups of peers running businesses just like you, providing a great sounding board to test ideas and concepts, review plans and goals, and present issues and opportunities for discussion. The result is improved strategy, accountability, people, and execution skills. If you are interested in learning more, go to www.criticalmassforbusiness.com and learn more about our executive peer group.
Welcome back to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Richard Franzi. We're talking with Peter Brennan, and we're talking OCBJ, which is Orange County Business Journal. Peter is the financial reporter for the Orange County Business Journal. But before we get back to him, I'd just like to say that a great way to stay informed about our guests is to sign up for our weekly newsletter. How do I do that, you ask? Go to criticalmass4business.com. That's our website. At the bottom of any page is a Join Our Mailing List box. Simply enter your email address, hit subscribe, and like magic, you'll start receiving our weekly newsletters chock full of information about our upcoming guests. And we don't do anything else with your email but give you the weekly newsletter. So please, I hope you will sign up. All right, before the break, Peter, we said we're going to look a little bit at real estate. And the reason why, correct me, or at least fill in the data here, real estate is a really important industry and sector here in Orange County in particular.
That's quite true.
And the Orange County Business Journal devotes a lot of coverage to real estate because of that. And people across the country, maybe around the world, have heard of names like Newport Beach.
Yes.
Anaheim, where
yes.
Disneyland is,
yes.
right? I mean, there is San Juan Capistrano, where the Swallows come back to. So maybe not in the same caliber as Anaheim and Newport Beach. Laguna, yes, right?
Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach. There's been TV shows about these places, the
yes.
OC. So you were just mentioning that there was a transaction that happened in Orange County. Can you?
It was revealed yesterday that the property, a 3.5-acre property overlooking Newport Beach Harbor, was sold for $55 million, which is the largest sale of a private property for residential in Orange County history.
You said 3.5 acres?
Yes.
That's a lot of prime real estate, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Overlooking what?
Overlooking Newport Beach Harbor.
How often does that come on the market?
Very seldom.
Right.
So that's why it got such a top price.
Right.
And that didn't come with a dock either. There was no dock.
No dock.
No dock.
But a view.
A beautiful view of the entrance to Newport Beach Harbor.
Right. And is that a residential area? I'm not familiar. Do you know?
Yes, it is a residential area. Right now, there are 2 houses on it, including one called the Big Blue House. It's literally painted blue. It was built in the 1930s, and it's about when I say 4,000 square feet or something. And then the other house is built in the 1980s, about 7,000 square feet.
So, what would do you think somebody's buying that as an investment? Are they buying it as a residence? What would drive someone, other than it's a limited asset?
Tear down.
Well, the realtors told me there's no plans right now for a tear down.
Okay.
And so they the buyers are private people. They didn't want to be named, and it turns out I was talking to one realtor, and she says the buyers are probably they're not famous, so you would not recognize them.
Okay.
And so I would imagine you buy it for one of 2 reasons. One, you don't really care what you have there. You just want to be there in that particular spot.
Exactly.
Or 2,
that much land too.
Yeah, that much land, or 2, you're planning on building some condos there or something like that in the future. High end.
Okay.
And stuff. It's I looked at a photo today of it, and it's just a very gorgeous spot.
Yeah, right. And it's a limited resource, right? There's only so much coastline in view, and that's a very high popular area. So to be able
it certainly is. And in Newport Beach Harbor, you'll find a lot of rich people buying houses and lots and that sort of thing, and then either flipping them or keeping them on. Like Bill Gross, who's a multi-billionaire, has about 3 or 4 properties down there in that area, Lido Peninsula and Balboa Island, that area.
Wow. And real estate in Orange County has really appreciated since the 90s.
It certainly has. It's very hard to buy real estate property here. If you look at, Chapman University did an economic survey last month, and they said that usually in the U.S. you have you have a mortgage 2 times the size of your family income. That's U.S. average. In California, it's about 5 times the size of your family income. In Orange County, it's 7 times the size of your family income.
The baseline is 2 times, and Orange County is 7?
That's right, yes. So, in other words, the mortgage is 7 times as much as your family brings in every year.
Wow. So that's...
it's expensive here.
That's a heavy mortgage to carry, right?
It is, and I think it's believe it or not, it's probably not as bad as the west side of L.A. or San Francisco, which is much higher.
Okay, you can find pockets of other cities and locations that have that.
Yes, and much higher ratios.
And you can find less expensive places to live in Orange County as well.
That's right. In the northern side, generally speaking, the further you get away from the coastline, the less expensive it is.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Right, and that's why a lot of families here in Southern California, if you don't live in Orange County, you live in the next community over. We call affectionately the Inland Empire.
That's correct.
For that very reason.
Yes.
You impact yourself with a commute, but you also get maybe more of a house or more real estate or something for less money or the same amount of money.
That's quite true. I live in Irvine, and the houses are small. If I lived in Riverside, I could get a house that maybe twice as much the size. So
and with the freeway investment, etc., it's a manageable commute. Although it's not ideal if you don't have to do it.
That's right.
Yeah. I went to Los Angeles. We're off subject, but I drove to Los Angeles last night to go to a concert at the Hollywood Bowl, which is about 57 miles from where I lived. But they're hard miles at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It's almost a series of stops. You hit traffic, and then it opens up for a little bit, and you get excited only to hit another pocket of traffic to open up. It's just a series of rush hours all the way from Southern Orange County to LA County.
That's certainly true.
Yeah, and not one that I would want to do on a regular basis.
I agree with you.
Okay. What do you see? What are you working on? What's coming up next in the Orange County Business Journal? Orange County Business Journal is a weekly newspaper.
That's right.
Right, and each week you're covering some story. So here it is, Tuesday now, and so your deadline is when you have to have your stories in.
Thursday.
Thursday.
So
you got to be working on something interesting.
Yes, I'm working on a firm and that's located next to PIMCO near Fashion Island, and this firm basically advises people where to invest their money. and so they have about $17 billion in assets under advisement.
17 billion?
Yeah, 17
Okay,
billion.
that sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. You
Okay.
know, and so and they manage these funds for wealthy families and for nonprofit entities and the like. And so they're giving advice on where these people should put their money. And I'm putting together the story right now. One thing that was very interesting to me, what he said was, there's this whole trend toward passive investments.
Yes.
You know, put all your money in
Right.
passive investments, low fees and the like. And the fellow I was talking with, he was telling me that that it's a trend, but it doesn't always work. It works for large cap U.S. stocks because that's very hard for a manager to outperform. But managers are really good at outperforming in the small cap and particularly in bonds.
Okay.
Bonds, you need an active manager without a doubt. So, passive investments good for certain types, but
Okay.
it's not good for everything. So I'll be illuminating that in the article.
Wow, I look forward to reading that, and that'll be out later this week, Friday, right? Paper comes out
It will be out Monday.
Monday. Okay, it goes to bed Friday, goes
Yes.
to print Friday, comes out Monday with its mailing. Okay, if someone would like to learn more about the Orange County Business Journal, how do they find the paper online?
OCBJ.com.
Just that simple, huh?
It's that simple.
All right, Peter. Well, thank you for being a friend of the program and a part of the critical mass community. Earlier, actually last month in June, you came and you spoke to my members of the CEO peer groups about the Chapman Report. You were actually there sharing on the economic update. So appreciate having you around the community. It's nice to have a relationship with a professional reporter here in Southern California.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to thank our engineer for today, none other than Paul Roberts, and our producers are Joan Park, Crystal Nunley, and Haley Stern. I'm your host, Richard Franzi. If you'd like to learn more about this radio show or the CEO peer groups that I lead, visit my company's website, criticalmass4, spelled F-O-R, business.com. You can find me on Twitter. I am CEO Peer Groups. You can also find me on Facebook. We have the Critical Mass for Business page. That is also our website, Critical Mass for Business. So that's where you find us on Facebook. I told you how to find me on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel. Very simple. Richard Franzi is our YouTube channel. Videos like the one of today with Peter, the interview, will be up there, as well as you can send me an email or contact me by just clicking on the contact page on my website at criticalmassforbusiness.com. And until our next show, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.
You have been listening to Critical Mass Radio Show Business Talk Show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.